Welcome back to another weekly recap video in which today we are covering week 10 of the NFL season. If you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. The teams on bye this week were the Packers, Raiders, Browns, and Seahawks. We have 14 games to cover, so let's get straight into this one. Let's get it. Let's start off with the first game of the week, which was Thursday Night Football, a AFC North divisional matchup between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals, in which the Ravens beat the Bengals 35-34. The Ravens are now 7-3, while the Bengals fall to 4-6. Joe Burrow went 34 for 56 with 428 yards and 4 touchdowns. Chase Brown led the team in rushing with 42 yards and a touchdown. Jamar Chase led the team in receiving with 264 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Tanner Hudson had a receiving touchdown on the day as well. Lamar Jackson went 25 for 33 with 290 yards and 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry led the team in rushing with 68 yards and a touchdown, while Tylan Wallace led the team in receiving with 115 yards and a touchdown. Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and Nelson Agholor each had a touchdown as well. The Bengals scored a touchdown on their first drive of the first half and scored a touchdown on the second drive of the first half. Heading into halftime, Cincinnati led 14-7, and then teams started to score touchdowns as the game was all tied up at 28, while the Ravens scored a touchdown and took a 35-28 lead over Cincinnati. Cincinnati scored a touchdown to make it 34-35, but the 2-point attempt failed and the Ravens pulled out the victory 35-34. Next game of the week was between the Chargers and the Titans, in which the Chargers beat the Titans 27-17. The Chargers are now 6-3, while the Titans fall to 2-7. Will Levis went 18 for 23 with 175 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Tyjae Spear led the team in rushing with 47 yards. Calvin Ridley led the team in receiving with 84 yards and 2 touchdowns. Justin Herbert went 14 for 18 with 164 yards and a touchdown, while Gus Edwards led the team in rushing with 55 yards, and Justin Herbert had a rushing touchdown as well as Hassan Haskins. Ladd McConkey led the team in receiving with 52 yards, while Quentin Johnston had a touchdown on the day as well. The Chargers scored the first points of the game with a field goal, which was then responded by a Titans touchdown. The Chargers took a 13-7 lead heading into halftime, which was then responded with a Titans field goal to start off the second half, which was then followed by 2 touchdowns by the Chargers as they took a 27-10 lead over the Titans. The Titans scored a final touchdown on their final drive to make it 27-17. Next game of the week was a divisional matchup in the NFC East between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys, in which the Eagles beat the Cowboys 34-6. The Eagles are now 7-2, while the Cowboys fall to 3-6. Jalen Hurts went 14 for 20 with 202 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, while Saquon Barkley led the team in rushing with 66 yards, while Jalen Hurts had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. A.J. Brown led the team in receiving with 109 yards, while Dallas Goedert and Johnny Wilson each had a touchdown. Cooper Rush started the game going 13 for 23 with 45 yards, and then Trey Lance took over as he went 4 for 6 with 21 yards and a interception. Rico Dowdle led the team in rushing with 53 yards, while Jake Ferguson led the Cowboys in receiving with 24 yards as well. The Eagles scored the first points of the game, which was then responded by a Dallas field goal, and then on the final drive of the first half, the Eagles scored a touchdown to take a 14-6 lead heading into halftime. The Cowboys failed to score in the second half, and the Eagles poured it on as they gave us the final score of 34-6. The next game of the week was between the Carolina Panthers and the New York Giants, in which the Panthers beat the Giants in overtime 20-17. The Panthers are now 3-7, while the Giants fall to 2-8. Daniel Jones went 22 for 37 with 190 yards and 2 interceptions. Tyrone Tracy Jr. led the team in rushing with 103 yards and a touchdown, while Daniel Jones had a rushing touchdown as well. Wan'Dale Robinson led the team in receiving with 51 yards on the day. Bryce Young went 15 for 25 with 126 yards and a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard led the team in rushing with 153 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Coker led the team in receiving with 41 yards, while Jatavian Sanders had a touchdown as well on the day. The Panthers scored the first 10 points of the game as they took a 10-0 lead over the Giants heading into halftime. Both teams scored a touchdown in the second half to make it 7-17, which was then followed up by a Giants touchdown to make it 14-17 in favor of the Panthers. And on the final drive of regulation, the Giants scored a field goal to tie it up at 17. The Giants got the ball to start off overtime, but fumbled it, which allowed the Panthers to walk it off with a field goal and give us the final score of 20-17. The next game of the week was a AFC West divisional matchup between the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs, in which the Kansas City Chiefs beat the Broncos 16-14. The Chiefs are now 9-0, while the Broncos fall to 5-5. Bo Nix went 22 for 30 with 215 yards and 2 touchdowns. Audric Estime led the team in rushing with 53 yards, while Cortland Sutton led the team in receiving with 70 yards and a touchdown. Devon Vele also had a receiving touchdown on the day. Patrick Mahomes went 28 for 42 with 266 yards and a touchdown. Kareem Hunt led the team in rushing with 35 yards. Kareem Hunt also led the team in receiving with 65 yards, while Travis Kelce had a touchdown as well. Denver scored the first touchdown of the game, which was then responded by a field goal and a Kansas City Chief touchdown as we headed into halftime with Denver in the lead 14-10. The Chiefs then scored a field goal to make it 14-13 and scored a field goal on their final possession to take a 14-16 lead, and Broncos were in the driving position until their field goal got blocked on the final second, which allowed the Chiefs to win 16-14. The next game of the week was between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Washington Commanders, in which the Steelers beat the Commanders 28-27. The Steelers are now 7-2, while the Commanders fall to 7-3. Russell Wilson went 14 for 28 with 195 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Jaylen Warren led the team in rushing with 66 yards, while Najee Harris had a touchdown on the ground. George Pickens led the team in receiving with 91 yards and a touchdown. Mike Williams and Pat Freiermuth each had a touchdown as well. Jaden Daniel went 17 for 34 with 202 yards, while Austin Eckler led the team in rushing with 44 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jeremy McNichols also had a touchdown on the ground as well, while Terry McLaurin led the team in receiving with 113 yards. The Steelers scored the first points with a touchdown, which was then responded by a Commanders touchdown, and then heading into halftime, Commanders took a 17-14 lead, which was then responded by touchdowns by both the Commanders and the Steelers to start off the second half, which made it 24-21, and then the Commanders scored a field goal to push it up to 27-21, and on the final drive, the Steelers were able to score a touchdown to make it 28-27, and then the Commanders turned it over on downs as the Steelers took the dub. Next game of the week was between the Minnesota Vikings and the Jacksonville Jaguars, in which the Vikings beat the Jaguars 12-7. The Vikings are now 7-2, while the Jaguars fall to 2-8. Sam Darnold went 24 for 38 with 241 yards and 3 interceptions, while Aaron Jones led the team in rushing with 88 yards. TJ Hawkinson led the team in receiving with 72 yards on the day. Mac Jones started for the injured Trevor Lawrence, going 14 for 22 with 111 yards and 2 interceptions. Travis Etienne led the team in rushing with 44 yards, while Mac Jones had a rushing touchdown on the ground. Evan Engram led the team in receiving with 40 yards on the day. The Vikings scored the first points of the game with a field goal, which was then responded by a Jaguars touchdown, and the score was 7-3, with the Jaguars in the lead heading into halftime. The Vikings then scored a field goal to make it 6-7 and scored 2 more field goals consecutively to hold on to that 12-7 victory. The next game of the week was a divisional matchup between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints, in which the Saints beat the Falcons 22-17. The Saints are now 3-7, while the Falcons fall to 6-4. Kirk Cousins went 23 for 38 with 306 yards and an interception, while Bijan Robinson led the team in rushing with 116 yards and 2 touchdowns. Drake London led the team in receiving with 97 yards on the day. Derek Carr went 16 for 25 with 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara led the team in rushing with 55 yards, while Marquez Valdes-Scantling led the team in receiving with 109 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. The first points of the game were scored by the Saints and then responded with touchdowns by both the Saints and the Falcons, as the score was 17-7 heading into halftime. There was an exchange of field goals and then a touchdown scored by the Falcons to make it 17-20, in which the Saints then held on to the lead to win with that score. The next game of the week was between the 49ers and the Buccaneers, in which the 49ers beat the Buccaneers 23-20. The 49ers are now 5-4, while the Buccaneers fall to 4-6. Brock Purdy went 25 for 36 with 353 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Christian McCaffrey led the team in rushing with 39 yards. Jawan Jennings led the team in receiving with 93 yards, while Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle each had a touchdown on the day. Baker Mayfield went 18 for 29 with 116 yards and a touchdown, while Bucky Irving led the team in rushing with 73 yards and a touchdown. Rachaad White led the team in receiving with 39 yards and a touchdown on the day as well. And Jake Moody was the one that kept missing field goals, and then heading into halftime, the 49ers had a 10-3 lead, and it was all tied up until Jake Moody redeemed himself and scored a walk-off field goal at the end of the game. The next game of the week was between the Buffalo Bills and the Indianapolis Colts, in which the Bills beat the Colts 30-20. The Bills are now 8-2, while the Colts are 4-6. Josh Allen went 22 for 37 with 280 yards and 2 interceptions. James Cook led the team in rushing with 80 yards and a touchdown, while Josh Allen had a touchdown on the ground as well. Matt Collins led the team in receiving with 86 yards on the day, while Joe Flacco started for the Colts, going 26 for 35 with 272 yards, 2 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. Jonathan Taylor led the team in rushing with 114 yards, while Alec Pierce led the team in receiving with 81 yards and a touchdown, while Tyler Goodson had a touchdown on the day as well. The Bills scored the first points of the day with a pick six and then a field goal to push up their lead to 10-3. Heading into halftime, the Bills had a 20-13 lead over the Colts, and the Bills then pushed their way up to make it 30-20 with our final score. This was the battle of the rookie quarterbacks between Caleb Williams and Drake May. The New England Patriots beat the Bears 19-3, as the Patriots are now 3-7, while the Bears fall to 4-5. Drake May went 15 for 25 with 184 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, while Ramondre Stevenson led the team in rushing with 74 yards. Austin Hooper led the team in receiving with 64 yards, while Jalen Polk had a touchdown as well. Caleb Williams went 16 for 30 with 120 yards. DeAndre Swift led the team in rushing with 59 yards, while Keenan Allen led the team in receiving with 44 yards on the day. Heading into halftime, New England had a 13-3 lead over the Bears, and the Bears failed to score a point in the second half, which gave us the final score of 19-3. The next game of the week was between the New York Jets and the Arizona Cardinals, in which the Cardinals beat the Jets 31-6. The Cardinals are now 6-4, while the Jets fall to 3-7. Aaron Rodgers went 22 for 35 with 151 yards, while Breece Hall led the team in rushing with 52 yards. Garrett Wilson led the team in receiving with 41 yards on the day. Kyler Murray went 22 for 24 with 266 yards and a touchdown. Trey Benson led the team in rushing with 62 yards, while James Conner had a rushing touchdown and Kyler Murray had 2 rushing touchdowns. James Conner led the team in receiving with 80 yards, while Marvin Harrison Jr. had a touchdown on the day as well. The Cardinals scored a touchdown on their first 3 opening drives, and heading into halftime, they had a 24-6 lead over the Jets. The Jets couldn't score in the second half and gave us the final score of 31-6. The next game of the week was Sunday Night Football between the Detroit Lions and the Houston Texans. The Detroit Lions beat the Texans 26-23. The Lions are now 8-1, while the Texans fall to 6-4. Jared Goff went 15 for 30 with 240 yards, 2 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Jahmyr Gibbs led the team in rushing with 71 yards, while David Montgomery had a touchdown. Sam Laporta led the team in receiving with 66 yards and a touchdown, while Amon-Ra St. Brown had a touchdown as well on the day. C.J. Stroud went 19 for 33 with 232 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Joe Mixon led the team in rushing with 46 yards and a touchdown, while John Mechie led the team in receiving with 74 yards and a touchdown on the day as well. Heading into halftime, Houston had a 23-7 lead over the Lions, and the Texans failed to score any points in the second half as the Lions were able to claw back, and Jake Bates had 2 clutch field goals at the final 2 drives as they won at the end of regulation 26-23. The next game of the week was between the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. Tua Tagovailoa went 20 for 28 with 270 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Devin Achane led the team in rushing with 37 yards, while Malik Washington had a rushing touchdown on the day as well. Jalen Waddle led the team in receiving with 57 yards, while Tyreek Hill had a touchdown on the day as well. Matthew Stafford went 32 for 46, 293 yards, and an interception. Kyron Williams led the team in rushing with 62 yards on the day. Puka Nacua led the team in receiving with 98 yards. The Rams could not score a touchdown, but the Dolphins scored a touchdown on the first drive and took a 10-6 lead heading into halftime. They then took a 17-6 lead, which was then answered by a flurry of field goals. The Dolphins beat the Rams 23-15. And that recaps all 14 games here in Week 10 of the 2024-2025 NFL season. Let me know in the comments below, who do you guys think will win the matchups next week? And if you like this type of content, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I appreciate all the support as we are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. If you're a fan of the NFL and college football, stay tuned as we'll be covering both all season long. Appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.